you were really deep and the thing bowled in one place and you almost got your head cut off by the wave.
I've been out and I got caught in the side by like a 10-footer apexed on my head and full tombstoning.
You and Otis are probably the only ones that would want to be behind me while I'm riding a foil. I think.
First saw the video, it like opened with everybody just clamoring to get to shore, and you're like, oh crap, there must be like a big white chasing after him.
I had a little off. Yeah, I had to cut a pill off. Yeah, but if we be real though.
It's been a while since we did just you and I, and since then we've had 2 Jaws swells, 1 Mavericks swell, and it's been an incredibly late season. When was the last time you saw a season that kind of went this deep into spring?
I can remember probably the first time somebody paddled out of Jaws. It was probably, when Shane Dorian came over and stuff with Ian Walsh, March 15th. That seemed late.
Yeah.
And this kind of blew the door open because, we had a swell well into April. And what was the exact date? April 7th or 8th or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Anyway, it was just really interesting because at this point, you're already trying to shift gears, look to the South Pacific, or just do more alternative water sports like windsurfing, kiting. And there's a windsurfing event at Ho'okipa for the World Tour. So the focus kind of shifts off, which in a way takes the pressure off because most people have moved on to other things. So this swell was I think particularly exciting because we kind of just had a day and a half out there of no one else. Well, few people would come out, but really just to experiment because it felt like an extra day.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I feel like that. I think we had a swell late February or something, and that one felt like to me that was going to be it. It was already pretty late. And after that swell, I felt like there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to work on that I just saw my surfing and I'm like, gosh, I wish I could have one more chance to try to lock these things in. And then having the 2 extra swells.
What were those things you wanted to work on?
It was mainly just the top turn. I've been working so much on sort of the upper body rotation, not sort of folding and hinging down and ending every turn looking at my feet.
Don't you find it hard in a small wave is when you're going back up the wave, you have to travel so far up the wave that you almost lose speed.
Yeah.
Even though you went from, 45 miles an hour at the bottom to now you're coasting up and you're just trying to get there to do a turn. And when you do the turn, then you're cutting through 4 or 5 foot chop.
Oh yeah, it's so much different than small wave surfing. But once you get up there and you're actually locking to the turn, I feel that the mechanics are somewhat similar. It's just a little bit more drawn out.
And while I was doing kind of alternative stuff, you were towing with another really good surfer from Maui, Cody Young, who's continuously been on the Challenger series of late to qualify, but it was interesting seeing his approach being just such a hardcore shortboard surfer.
Yeah, that's I've been wanting to get those guys out there for a while. I'm just so curious to see how they would approach it and get them psyched on tow surfing. Because if you think about it, there's not a lot of really high level surfers that tow out there. If they go out there, it's typically paddling for one reason or another. So it was sick having him be out there. And
what did you think of it?
He loved it. Especially being on a good board too. I think.
What did he think of towing though? Because most of those guys are pretty solid on just paddling, but then again, you're paddling a 10-foot board and there is no real turning.
Yeah, no, I think it opened. I think his mind up to how high performance of a wave it actually is. Because when you're on a small board, when you're getting towed in, you have to approach it in a different way. Unless if you're going straight as a surfer, as a good surfer, it feels like you're sort of wasting the wave, and you really realize how much potential there is. But he was sort of trying to wrap his head around the same thing, where you were just saying that, coming off the bottom, you don't necessarily doesn't feel like a bottom turn. Ends up being a bottom turn, but it's really mid-face.
You're sort just trying to get up there.
Yeah, get up there. And I think it a lot of times it feels like you're going really high up on the wave and you're in a critical spot. And then you see the footage, you're surfing the bottom half of the wave. So that's the big mental block to get over. And that's what I've been trying to do this year is just force myself to just
The conditions
reach up
were
there,
really hard because it was North Swell. And so North Swell doesn't have a long wall. It's not bending at you. It's really choppy. The wind was side on shore 20 to 25 knots. So if you can do a good turn in those conditions on a really good clean day with like a horseshoe, kind of like what we thought was the last glassy jaw swell, you go back on those days, it'll feel just terrific, I bet.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that day it was a bonus day, so it's hard to complain about it, but it was really hard. There was huge chops, and but
I really enjoy those days more than anything because of the opportunity those big chops offer, but then also because it just, for some reason, it's not that desirable, and so you could actually fall on a wave and then not, like, I felt like I could experiment more. And like if I blow a wave, it doesn't really matter because the wave's not perfect by Jaws standards, but I could immediately get on the next wave and try it again. Whereas on those really clean days, you're kind of like, I don't know, I might only get a handful of these waves. I kind of want to make every single one, but then you end up surfing it conservatively, and then you don't feel anything from it.
Yeah. And one of the big moves you landed was that front flip. And I didn't see it live. I didn't even know you did it until I saw your post. But that was pretty early in the morning, yeah?
That was the first thing I did when we was towing, and we were at the crack of dawn, and it was really, really rugged and rough when we first went out, right? But as the day kind of continued, it cleaned up, but there was these nice big side chops. And I posted the clip, and Noah Flegel, who's like a professional wakeboarder, but then also a really good foiler, he called it a bank roll because you're like, turn on your heels and you're banking, and then you hit a chop and then you go front flip. And so I was like, because I always called it a front flip, but it's kind of like you're kind of corked a little bit too. You're not like front over the nose. So whatever it is, it does feel like a front flip when you're doing it because you're kind of like going towards your toes with your face. But that trick is, I feel like it's an easier maneuver once you feel confident in it to land than a chop hop 360. It looks better, and you definitely fly farther because, it just, having the board above you gives this weird momentum forward. But it's the most satisfying move I know. And we didn't have a lot of swells to try it because there was no wind and no chop. And you could definitely manufacture it on a glassy face, but it's much easier when you have like a nice big chop coming to you and you just kind of can hit it, and you can open up early and like try to land. Yeah,
that was some of the biggest chops I've seen. I don't know what it is about the morning sickness out there sometimes where we show up and it almost looked unsurfable. It was really borderline. Like there was 10-foot rollers going sideways through it. And then how does it just clean up?
I just think, I don't know, morning sickness. It's all the Hawaii waves are like that though.
Yeah.
Like typically like pipeline isn't good till the sun hits it. And Jaws, I think you could say the same thing. Like until the sun is like really up above, it doesn't seem to clean up.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I don't know if like sunlight affects the water molecules or what's going on. It's definitely not tide because tide hardly affects the wave itself on that big of a swell. And it also is constantly different every time we surf it. It sometimes starts high tide, sometimes it starts low tide, whatever. So, there's usually a lot of backwash. I wonder if it could be when the mountain gets really cold, the wind direction is different. And when the Central Valley heats up, you get that Venturi effect and maybe the wind direction changes and that pushes the chop away better. There's probably a million things that have to happen for it to change.
I feel like my theory is that overnight the trade winds just aren't as strong because the valley hasn't heated up, and that's what kind of sucks it in. And I think right when the sun comes up, that wind really starts to kick up. And those first, like, when the wind first starts, like the first swells are really close period. And then as the day goes, it's almost like those individual wind swells separate or something.
It's almost like agitated water. That makes total sense.
Yeah, but that was that morning, and Cody and I were sort of fiending to make it over to Honolulu at some point, and we were like almost. It was only like 7:30. We were almost like, should we just leave right now? As we knew the day was firing.
I thought you guys were gonna leave, but typical fashion, it always cleans up, and I just figured like it's probably gonna be crowded over there, so out here at least I can. Well, I had a different approach. You were focused on just towing. I was thinking a bunch of different alternative water sports, but you still made it over. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, eventually. But yeah, it was nice. And it was also, for me, it was the unknown of Cody's never driven out there. And it's
could
always
he drive?
Yeah, that was a big question. And I feel like it's so much of a confidence thing and just being able to read waves. And I mean, I kind of figured, but he was really darn good, actually.
Yeah.
Like, as a surfer, obviously he's going to know what's good. And it was like he was able to pick out those smoother, nicely shaped waves, which
That's
were hard to
hard.
find that day.
Yeah, it's like, is it the second or third? Sometimes it's the first wave out there. It's just, you kind of got to read the room when you first get there. It's like, how do you approach towing someone in there is based on what you are seeing then and there. It's not like every day is the same. So that's pretty impressive. You're only as good as the driver allows you to be. And if I wasn't getting towed in by Ola, our water safety, if I wasn't towing with you, I wouldn't be able to like find those chops. Or like I told him, I was like, hey, tow me actually not as deep so I can fade into the bowl, since it was kind of big giant peaks. And so I had a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, that's such a big thing. And it's interesting this year, since I've started towing at Jaws, this is the least we've ever towed together. Like, did I tow you into a single wave this year?
I don't think so.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when I was first starting, I feel like I didn't really want that many waves out there. So I was totally fine just, towing with you and giving you, the amount of waves you want. And now that I feel like I'm fiending for a lot more waves, it was like, it almost makes sense for us to have different partners. Then we're kind of surfing together the entire day.
Just came down to, I want to surf 100% of the time. You want to surf probably close to 100% of the time. And, Cody's pretty new out there, so I'm sure he's okay with a couple of waves and he wants to drive. And then in our case, like Ola just loves driving.
Yeah.
And we pay him for water safety. So, for me, it's like those opportunities, like I kind of just want to get as many waves and then I can work through my sports. Because while it is fun towing other people in, like I have so many goals and sports that I want to do, it really comes down to like being time efficient. Because if it's good in the moment, it could totally not be good later. And so I've just learned you can't just like put it all like, oh, it might be better this afternoon. Maybe the swell just dies or something.
I know. I made that mistake towing other people a few times where I'm always like, you're always trying to, somewhat selfishly figure out like, okay, what's going to be the window? And then maybe you're like, okay, I want to be surfing at this time. And then you misread it. And then by the time you're towing,
whoever's out with us is usually on our program and I'm paying for everything. This is my deal and their guests, like they're going to get what they're going to get. I just remember when I was a kid, the first time I towed out there was with Laird and Dave on like a tow board, even though before it was like a foil, but the first time on an actual tow board. That day I watched all day and they never towed me in once. And it was the next day when the waves got a little smaller. Not that I couldn't handle it big days, but by the time they were like, okay, they had gotten what they wanted, that they decided, okay, we'll get you like a bunch of waves. And they ended up not having the desire because they already got it as big as it gets. Back then I understood that. I was like, no, I'm like stoked with whatever, but you definitely like, this is what we love to do. This is what I really want to push myself in. And you just got to make yourself priority in that case, especially when you surround a team around what you're doing. And anyone can go out and make their own team. You know what I mean?
That's very
if
true.
you really want to, if you feel like you're not getting the waves, go make your own team.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of on the program, it's just what it is. I wouldn't expect it from anyone else if I was on their program.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our team has seemingly grew over the past, especially this season. Otis has kind of come into the fold and he's been obviously ripping and towing, and then bringing Cody out there too. He's really psyched on it. And so it is interesting, those dynamics that I've never sort of experienced before, because it's kind of just been you and I for a while. But yeah, of course I feel like how we've divvied it up now, where you kind of have Ola and you get every opportunity you ever need, and then everyone else, kind of figured out. And now that I have my own ski, I'm kind of a little bit more independent as far as I can go in and go to Honolulu or whatever. But did I tell you the craziest thing? Cody's first Wipeout, So he got this crazy like north peak, but it was super doubled
I didn't
up.
realize he even fell that day.
No, it was gnarly. It was like, I don't think he realized how nuts the wave was. It was one of those.
Did you see the clip?
No, I didn't see the clip, but I was like super far on the shoulder, so I watched the whole thing. And it was like two waves on top of each other that grew, and he just did like a normal like turn cutback and was coming in. The thing just exploded with way more ferocity than I think he realized.
Wow.
He got exploded, sent straight to the bottom, hit his shin on the reef.
No.
Came up, he was under for a long time too. He didn't pull because it was at the end of the wave. I don't think he thought it was gonna be that gnarly.
Wow.
He pulled at the bottom and it took, I was like looking for him. The board was popped up in the channel because it was a north one.
Wow. So he wasn't even like at the peak. He was just kind of wider, huh?
Yeah.
Wow,
And it sent him, he came up and his leg was bleeding. I was tripping on that. That's like, I don't think I've ever heard of that happening where first wave you ever fall on, you just hit the reef. But
I mean, that's worst case scenario in a way. I mean, 2-wave hold down is probably worse, but like maybe the next Wipeout won't feel that bad.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously, I mean, we train with him almost every day in the gym, but he handled it fine. But it was crazy.
That is crazy.
If he hadn't have pulled his vest, like he came up like with barely any time. He would have gotten 2-wave hold down for sure.
Oh my gosh,
if that thing didn't work.
So crazy.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But yeah, that day, gosh, so much happened. And then the thing, I think the most interesting thing to take away from those swells was, I guess, the amount of sports that you got done. And that has to be your record, yeah?
Yeah, I think over the swell period itself, I think it was like 10 sports.
Actually?
Yeah, because I rode a parawing, I foiled, which you pair a wing with a foil, but you're kind of considered different sports, you know? And then I foiled, and then I also, I windsurfed, kite surfed. Let's see here. Winged. I winged on a tow board. I feel like that's a little different if you consider those. I mean, it's all sub sports. So it's, yeah. And then tow and surfed, rode a twin tip wakeboard. I think I kite surfed. Did I include that? Okay, so maybe 9.
Wait, did you include winging with the foil and without?
I think I said.
Okay.
Let me do that again. Sorry,
Yeah.
1 second. It went, let's say, parawinging, foiling, tow board, windsurfing, kiting, winging with a foil, winging on a surfboard, twin tip, and then what else? Am I missing one?
I think that was it.
Okay, so maybe it was 8.
That's crazy.
I guess maybe over the season I've done 10 sports, because then you have, well, actually I did more. I did paddling and stand-up paddling.
Okay.
So that's the 10.
Yeah.
So over this whole season,
Jeez.
over this entire season, I was able to do all those things. And that's pretty fun, you know? I mean, it started off with like only being able to stand-up paddle, tow, foil, and
Windsurf, kite.
No, and paddling because it was glassy.
Oh,
and then this was like the only time the wind came up for a swell. And then I got to unleash all those other fun sub sports. And I mean, the biggest question mark is the first thing I did after towing, when the wind kind of cleaned up a little bit, was, and I think this is probably when Cody was underwater, I rigged up my wing. And I don't know if anyone has winged out there yet, but this was a real fun opportunity to see like, oh, can I wing into a really big wave? I've been foiling and I was using the same foil, but the difference is like when you're getting in towed in on your own power and you have another thing that you're holding on to, it just adds another dynamic, and a wing itself creates so much lift. And when you're going, gosh, that fast, just to catch the wave, I felt like I was going as fast as I could just to get into the wave. And then my first wave I caught was like a bomb. It was just one of the big bombs, and I held the wing above my head because I was like, I feel like I'm like in a spot where if it does hit the end bowl, I can maybe sheet in and get farther to the flats and maybe bottom turn around. So I kind of opted to keep it above my head. And then after that, I think my favorite single wave was where I kind of pocket rode it, and I actually put the wing behind me and I held it kind of like how a lot of professional wingers do in the waves, just to free up your hands. And it almost was better than normal foiling because the wing itself was super stable. it was like getting this wind and it was slowing me down just a little bit to make my foil feel comfortable. And it had enough stability in the air.
You almost like balance against it.
It just felt like I was leaning onto something.
Oh,
Whereas
weird.
when you have nothing in your hands, it's almost worse because you feel every boil and everything kind of knocks and you're reacting versus being reactive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like you're not reading with the wing itself. It kind of dampens it. That's what I'm trying to get at. But that was really fun. And the cool thing is I don't use a leash with it, of course. So if I ever felt like I really needed to get rid of it, like when the pocket ride, I was like, okay, if it ends up pitching over me, I can always let go of the wing.
Yeah.
And then maybe be in the barrel with this foil. But that didn't have to do that. So I wasn't going to sacrifice my wing.
Yeah. How was that? I don't know how many waves you've gotten so far yet, but you were just going on a bomb and Cody and I were waiting for a while and we were looking at the wave and Cody like saw you going and wasn't going to go. And I'm like, go. And then, cause I figured that you were going to be sort of on the shoulder. I mean, I didn't see any other wing waves and I was like, he's going to be way over there. It's going to be fine. And I let go and you were like in the spot.
I think I would have probably been deeper too, but I saw you and I was like, I should probably leave him a little room so he doesn't doesn't run into the foil. Cause I mean, being on a big wave with a foil would obviously be the scariest thing.
Oh yeah.
Because you're like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
If
I didn't want to be
up?
right behind you. That's
so I
for sure.
did kind of move a little wide, but I remember being kind of like already in the swell and I probably could have kicked out, but I felt so locked into it. I was like, I'm going.
Yeah.
And I figured if you went, I would leave you enough space. And that's a funny point because watching back the footage, you were really deep and the thing bowled in one place and you almost got your head cut off by the wave because you like went to pull up under the lip and it hit you and you like somehow made it. That would have been a bad wipeout.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, saw it. I was like looking back as I was winging and then I was like, tried to give space. You made it. And then I ended up jumping and kind of going over you or like pretty near you. And I was like, Ridge almost got decapitated twice on that wave. One by the wave and almost one by me on the foil.
I know. It's been a few times this season I've ended up behind you because the foil you're able to take let go so far, and I can't help but it's technically your wave because you let go before, but it's just how it is. You don't want to waste any waves. But those have been some of the most memorable waves. I feel like the doubles are.
I think you're probably
so fun.
You and Otis are probably the only ones that would want to be behind me while I'm riding a foil. I think everyone else usually is like, I don't want to be near him if he's on a foil. You know what I mean? Or anyone for that matter. But you guys both wing, you both foil. So I think you understand it. And we're all kind of out there together. So it's like, oh, okay. Like it could work.
I figured if I see you, I know the telltale signs of you're about to fall, because it's usually not such an instantaneous thing. If you fall in the foil, it's usually you get a little too high and then instability. And then in that case, I could get out of the way. But yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to be right behind.
Imagine though, being too deep and I fall and you can't go across because there's a foil going up the wave and you have to straighten out. And underwater, you're just thinking there's a samurai sword flipping. And the chances of it hitting you are probably low because there's so much chaos going on. But it still could get hit.
It's not impossible. You get smoked by that thing.
Yeah. The moment I think I switched into Mavericks, I fell on one wave at Mavericks. And ironically, crazy enough, Mavericks was actually harder to foil than Jaws in the sense that there's a lot more larger warble. And then the wave sucks up so quick. Sometimes in that brown water, you can't read the definition. And I had one wave, I just kind of fell for no reason. I was going straight. And in the footage, you could see me trying to swim down, even though I wasn't getting sucked over. But it was just try to get as far away from the foil as possible in the event that if I did get sucked over, I wouldn't be intertwined with it. I was like, at least if I fought the water long enough, the foil would go first. And then maybe I'd go and hopefully not land on it. But
it's terrifying. Was that the only time you fell foiling this season in big waves?
In foiling, yeah, it was the only time I fell, but nothing happened. I fell early enough. But as a precaution, I tried to outswim the wave.
Did you go full survival?
No, I just was swimming straight underwater, down.
Oh, crazy.
Just to make sure the foil could get a far enough distance from me before I get sucked over. But neither me or the board got sucked over. But the very next wave at Mavericks caught my board and I was clear. But, luckily I didn't fall once on the foil at Jaws, which is surprising because every in the past, not on the ideal foil equipment out there, felt like you were going to die. But finally, my setup feels unbelievable. Like, I just feel like, okay, I don't know how, there hasn't been a wave that's too big yet. And I'm sure I'll have to adjust my foil at some point. But, I think like that big eddy day, it'd probably feel too big for that foil. Yeah. But I haven't had the opportunity. All the Jostles have been on a medium size, and same with Mavericks. It wasn't like a huge day.
So
hard to know.
Yeah. And just talking about the multi-sport thing, I feel like for me, it feels like there's still so much for me to learn and do with toe surfing that I honestly don't have much of a desire to do anything else. But do you think the reason why you've been focused you've just been going in so many different directions because you've reached sort of a level where you're like, I don't want to say you're getting bored of towing, but like, I don't know. Is there anything to that, or is it just more that you just want to do everything?
I just like the experimentation, and you're able to ride this wave with so many different faces on it and see it from a different perspective. Like, trying to catch a wave windsurfing out there is probably one of the scariest, because unlike the other wind sports, you're not like always moving really fast because the wind direction, the wind speed. So in a way, it feels like paddling in of all the wind sports, because you might be just floating there and then you catch the first wave, fade out of that, and then the second wave picks you up, and you're kind of like a little bit outside of where you would typically paddle in. Mm-hmm. And so you get that really steep, nice drop. And, if you're kite surfing, it feels like you're towing surfing, but then you just are continually holding onto your power source, which is the kite. And the hard part with the kite is sometimes you can outrun your kite. So there's like the technical side of like learning how to drift your kite. And it's a different technique to like riding Hokipa or another wave because of the speed and the length of your bottom turn. And then, with winging was probably the best, because winging, I was just like way out the back, and I had all the speed in the world. And I could see the swell, and I could be on top of the swell and lock in and go over it because I had no drag, and the wind, that offshore wind didn't affect me, because the foil, you can push into the wind direction a lot more. And so of all the methods to catch waves, like next to kite surfing, that one felt the easiest to catch the wave. Kiting is the easiest to just lap. Like,
right.
Get waves, be comfortable, and then just kick out and get a million waves. Like, kiting's probably the easiest method of all the wind sports. Maybe one of the smoothest entries would have to be on the wing foil. And then the parawing was probably one of the coolest feelings, because you do feel like you're winging and you catch in. While the parawing's not as efficient as the wing, you could still get that same sensation of easing in, not feeling the chop, be in the right spot. And then what I loved about it is I was able to collapse that 3-meter parawing, stuff it in my hand, and ride the wave and feel like I was just surfing. And, just have like my freedom. Granted, I was still holding something, but it's just, if something was to go wrong, I could always let it go, because it is sort of a sea anchor. It would be the worst thing to get wrapped up in of all the sports, maybe next to the kite lines, but it'd be very difficult to do that unless it was something catastrophic. But yeah, that being said, it's a different way to approach everything, and it keeps it really fun, exciting. And just as I got comfortable as towing, I went and tried winging, and I was uncomfortable. And just as I got comfortable winging, I was like, let me throw up a kite. Okay, like, I'm a little uncomfortable flying this kite on a big wave. Just when I got comfortable there, I'm going to swap to my windsurfer. And then just as you get comfortable there, let's just take the parawing out, And then, it's same thing with like the twin tip kiteboard. You get comfortable going. It's too easy going straight on a toe board, but it's really hard going straight on a twin tip.
Right.
So going straight on a twin tip all of a sudden brings you back to the first wave you ever towed.
I tried it. One of the last swells, I was much smaller, and you made it look pretty easy. And I was like, it's probably like skimboarding or boogie board, standing. But that thing was really weird.
Did you notice how much faster it felt though?
It felt really fast. I just wasn't used to being in the center of the board.
No, me neither.
That feels so wrong. Yeah. And you got, what was it? It was the night before the last day, which was, I think, was even bigger, but you got a huge one that day on the twin tip, right? Was that the one?
Yeah. The evening. I mean, that's the thing, is like, I went with our buddy Tucker, who was with me at Mavericks. He's from Santa Barbara, and we went up and checked Jaws in the afternoon, and no one was up there. And it was really cool because it felt like, the cliff in the summer is like no one's down there, and it's just it's all you hear is the wind blowing the trees, and there's just it's almost like this tranquility you don't normally get. But the swell started to pick up, and I started seeing these big caps, and I was like, I think this evening it's worth it. And everyone was kind of like, I don't know, shouldn't we just wait for morning? I'm like, last swell this season, you might as well just do one last big push. And it always gets big like right before dark on these upcoming swells. Like it'll just, even if it's not expected. And sure enough, we went out there and it was just us out there. Actually, the scariest thing is you went on the rocks to launch because you didn't even believe it.
Yeah. But luckily I brought my board and stuff. I was like, there's a small chance, but I'm just going to go and watch them and try to surf out here.
And when you went on the cliff, did you realize did it look bigger than you anticipated?
Right. It's crazy. Right when we first got there, it didn't look that good at all. I was like, oh, I guess he's going to try to get something. Like it just it had no shape whatsoever. And then literally right when you guys showed up and you started towing, the waves were starting to really feel the reef and go around. And I was like, oh shit, I guess I should put on my stuff. And it was surprisingly easy getting off the rocks. I mean, with the tow board, it's pretty minor, but actually we did climb a whitewater, didn't we?
I had to climb one whitewater because I was trying to get close. You'd have had to duck it. I was just like, it just doesn't be sucked to break your board right now, especially if you're going out. So I probably risked it a little too much with the ski, but the new Sea-Doos are pretty insane in the sense that I have a lot of confidence in them compared to our previous jet skis. But yeah, that being said, that evening was like quite spectacular because it was just us. And that north swell, it's way scarier than like a nice westerly swell because while the westerly swell is scary because of the barrel component, at least it's like this predictableness. Whereas the north swell kind of acts like Mavericks where it like peaks up into one spot and you're not sure if it's going to run. You're not sure if it's going to hold back. It's extra bumpy. And those north peaks can really thump you. Like, not that any wave could thump you, but there's something about it where it's just kind of this raw power. It's not like focused into like a nice wall. It's focused into just one apex. So those are the days are really easy to get into trouble and get hurt. Probably the most susceptible to get hurt are those days. But we had that evening and then we had all day the next day. And I would say probably one of my highlights of that day was when I did go kite surfing. And this is the funniest thing, like trying to rig all this equipment out there is kind of a nightmare. So to give a little context, like tow and surfing's easiest because you have your tow board already on the Sea-Doo and you're like, okay, let's go out the back. Bingo, we're on. And then, the way you set up a wing, it's on the easier side. You have to pump up in this like bumpy sea. So it's really hard to get the PSI, the pressure strong enough to make your wing feel as good as it does when you pump on land, but you manage it. And then with kite surfing, you have all these 24-meter long lines and I essentially lay out my kite the night before and then I walk my lines out, attach them, carefully wind them up so that they don't get inverted or tangled. And then I attach it to the kite. I fold it up like a parachute and then I put it in a bag. And then when I'm getting ready, I have to take that bar out really carefully, not to like invert the lines or tangle them. And then I have to pump that kite up. The best thing is we actually anchored the jet ski, which I haven't done before. So the ski's always in one spot.
Yeah, that's nice. And
I had Ola hold the leading edge once it was pumped up. And I jumped in the water and I unwound it and swam back, close to 90 feet, 24 meters. And then made sure the lines were good. And then once I did that, I was like, oh, that was actually kind of easier than I thought. Because sometimes I've had it tangled and then you have to like undo one line and then like somebody holds the bar and then another person holds a kite and you try to like untangle them. Or sometimes you could leave the kite in the water and try to put your kite bar through, but then it could power up and you could rip through your hands, cut a finger off. It's just like super like a lot to take in when you're already in an intense place. But then just to add it, I was like, I have to throw a GoPro on my lines. And I was flying the kite and Ola was trying to put the GoPro on the lines because there's a special mount. And after that, I was just doing laps. I got the most waves in the shortest amount of time. Like in 20 minutes, I had no one was out there.
I
you were towing still.
My last wave was with you. and I went behind you and I literally almost got clipped again.
Oh, that's
It was the
right.
same
Yeah.
thing,
But you got a good GoPro shot.
It was a sick GoPro shot. It
You
was
got
like
a
the
good GoPro
360,
shot. And then I ended up having it to myself, and I was having so much fun. It's hard to let good waves go by. I did a drive up order for a burrito at our boat,
Yeah, I saw that.
which is kind of, in tradition for channel crossings and Jaws days, do the drive by the window. And then I would say in that moment, it'd be really interesting to hear where people have had lunch, because I don't know if anyone's eaten in a cooler place than I have, because I was 5 feet from getting lipped by a giant wave. And I was just sitting back in my harness, looking back, eating my burrito as this wave was landing. And it was so funny because you feel safe because I'm on my really good tow board with a good kite and I'm like in the spot and I have all the speed. But at the same time, like if I was just 5 feet farther back, I would be getting obliterated with a burrito in my mouth.
Yeah, what would even happen? Would you choke on that thing or what?
I think I would probably not get a very good breath and have to rely on the oxygen stored in my circulatory system. And, probably come up and be bummed half my lunch was gone. But that didn't happen. And it was great because I ate the burrito. There was no trash left. And I was able to just keep doing my thing. And then after that, the wind started to get a little funky and everything started winding down. And I was like, okay, I got to windsurf it. Because one of the coolest things about, I think, windsurfing that place is that it was the first real method of riding that wave the way it has been ridden, which is on really big waves. I think, people have tried to surf it in the past on small days. Mm-hmm. In the old days, let's talk the 80s, 70s probably, or so it's been claimed. But I think windsurfing was the proof that you could actually ride a 60-foot wave out there. Yeah. Because windsurfing, you could catch it. But it's funny, I ended up, every time I'm out there, I always think about the guys, the early pioneers who would first windsurf it. And they'd windsurf from Ho'okipa upwind all the way to Jaws, which is probably around 5 miles, something like that, and they'd go up there. It'd probably take them an hour because the wind doesn't get very good once you get to the lighthouse point, which is the halfway point kind of between the two waves. And then they'd have no one there, no one on the cliff, no one to film, no water safety. Like, gosh, what do you do if you lose your gear? And you'd have to get pounded up the rocks and then climb up the cliff, go through at the time, maybe the pineapple fields, walk probably 45 minutes, get to a road and hitchhike back to Ho'okipa. I don't know. Like,
so gnarly.
And they'd always go in the evenings. And so it's just like, they were savage. And so I did a post on Instagram and it was cool because I didn't really know exactly who were the first guys to go out there. But it was Dave Kalama commented and he said it was like 87 or 88 or that him, Brett Lickle, and an Australian windsurfer, Mark Peterson, were the first ones to sail up there and ride giant waves. They were like the first
80s.
guys.
That's crazy.
And then I think it was around the 90s that they went and started tow and surfing out there.
Yeah.
But it was cool to get that, those facts straight because I didn't really know who it was because you always heard of windsurfers going out. And I think what would often happen is they could have a world championship windsurfing event at Ho'okipa. And if the waves just got too big, they'd end up, a lot of the guys would just sail upwind and go sail this other spot. And it'd be closing out Ho'okipa. And you're just like, man, windsurfing, it was just a different time back then. They were built different. I mean, one of my favorite shots was from a movie we watched endlessly, which was Rip, Robbie Nash's film from in the 90s. And him and Don Montague, his sail designer at the time, were at that lighthouse point, walk down the rocks, and there's that big I would say tide pool. And remember how Robbie jumped and Don didn't, and he got swept into this giant hole tube. And then Robbie spent the next 45 minutes sailing upwind, and then he sailed Jaws by himself on a pink sail, and it was like 60, 70 feet.
I know. What would even happen if just the wind died?
Well, I think often they just float back.
They would just kind of...
You could just stand and slug back. But then again, the water's so... That time, it would have felt even more taboo than now because the water is so deep in that area and it just... All you can probably think about is sharks. And there's navigational hazards as well. Like from Pe'ahi Jaws, where the lighthouse is, there's that big kind of rock plateau with slab waves that are... If it was a foot deeper, you'd have some the best surfers surfing these giant slabs, but it's just too shallow. But it's 20-foot barreling, gurgling, mental waves. And you have to kind of go far out to get around that, you know? And then you're out to sea and you have to sail all the way back down. So yeah, they'd have to sail up there and then sail back and probably catch a wave that was like 40 feet tall at Hokipa
in the dark, almost, yeah.
up the beach. And back then, no lifeguards as well. So, you know, it only come like if your friends were like, hey, where did that guy go? We should probably go look for him.
Yeah, as crazy different time. And the last 3 days we had out there, I feel like it was so special because, I mean, growing up watching those movies, I think something we always marveled at was the fact that those guys were up there alone. And it was just like, imagine having this place to yourself. And the last 3 days, which I don't know if I maybe a couple times through my times at Jaws, but we got substantial amounts of time where there is nobody. And remember the paddle day, the smaller glassy paddle day we had in mid-March?
Yep.
There was a time when it was only John Spencer was swimming. And we should talk about that whole thing too in the channel. And then,
that's right.
And then Ola was out the back doing something. And it was so trippy paddling out there and seeing no jet skis or boats in the channel.
It was just you locking eyes with John Spencer, which we should touch about that. So like we've always thought you could swim Jaws. And I think on bigger days, there's a lot of current pushing into the impact zone and it would require somebody to have a water safety on them and drop them in the right spot, them get the shot, then get picked up. But there's a lot of risk, especially when you're holding a camera. But John Spencer, one of our friends here that is a great cinematographer, he body surfs every morning out at Ho'okipa, or while he's been on Maui. He lives on another island now, but you know, he's probably 6'7".
Is he that tall? 6'5" maybe.
Dude, he's super tall.
Yeah,
I'd almost say he's 6'7", but he's like really long and he doesn't actually ever swim with fins because his feet are like so big. When we went to Mavericks and I wanted him to swim Mavericks after our success at Jaws, we couldn't find a big enough booty. So he just crammed his foot into like a neoprene booty and the booty itself just stretched longer and cramped his foot a little bit. But it was, you know, what we had to do. But the craziest thing is like, he ended up lining up 2 epic shots with you and myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, you haven't even seen it.
No, I haven't even. I saw your shot. I haven't seen my shot though.
Your shot's really good. It's just like mine.
Really?
But if he was just a little farther in, he would have gotten maybe the best part. But like it was just you could see he was filming through the wave and the wave was barreling, and you could see your tail as it was in the barrel.
Whoa!
It was really cool.
Sick.
So. I don't know that many people that would be willing to do that. It takes a special day. That was a very glassy day, very controlled. It wasn't huge. Funny though, like you always like, oh, it's not that big. And then you see the footage and you're like, geez, that's still a giant wave.
I mean, it has to be big for the wave to even break.
It does have to be big.
Yeah.
But like our standards are like, oh, it's a small day. And it's still, I mean, the foil wave I got, that wave will still look like as big as most full waves I would ever ride.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, wow, that wave was a lot bigger than I thought. And I was like just outrunning the wave. So pretty interesting, you know? He ended up getting caught inside once. Bad.
Oh, yeah.
And he got pounded. No inflation vest because we didn't have one that fit him. And he's a fish already. He's like, I can swim. And sure enough, he said he was like swimming under the wave. And
like
as
he
was
deep
coming
too, he said.
Yeah, he went really deep, but the problem was when he was coming up, there was so much clouds of whitewater that he would have had to just waited and let it like settle, but then the next wave could come. So he tried going into the cloud and immediately just got taken really deep and like spun around. And he's a really good waterman. So I think I was like, yeah, when it gets bigger, we should probably invest in getting you an inflation vest
and maybe
for you.
Water safety guy watching him.
Well, yeah. And that day, you know, we had Ola there, but we were also utilizing Ola for a bunch of different toys, like me foiling. And it's like, oh, we got you. I'm watching you. No, we had Slater there.
Yeah, true.
But Slater was also not paying that much attention to him.
Well, I just think I think it's easy for him to be in the spot to get that barrel shot. I just think the gnarly thing is once he goes through it, to his point of view, it probably feels like he's not moving at all. He's not in a current, but it's just such a large mass of water that when he pops up, he's going to be way inside for the next one. So I feel like if it's a real day, I don't know how you'd maybe just not go for that shot until the last wave of the set
you'd have to
or
see
something.
the really good wave. No, you'd have to see a really good wave coming, and then you just have to get dropped and have a water safety guy like looking only at you. And when you pop up, just scoop them.
Yeah, makes sense.
Might wake out the next wave, but it probably would be worth for the shot, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's a unique perspective that I think we want to do more of, and he got all excited about it. So that literally like 2 days later, Mavericks was happening. Yeah. And I was like, do you want to go to Mavericks? And unfortunately, we didn't get much there because the swell was very like not great. But I told him, I was like, on the right day out here, you could get the most stupid psycho shots. But we just need a day like that. And so far, the last few sessions I've had at Mavericks haven't been what I remember getting when I was, years ago, which was like big and super clean and like just like breaking in the same spot.
Yeah.
It's been very like stormy and messy, and I probably miss some clean days, that's for sure. Because there probably has been some, but we've always gone when it's been like south wind, really unruly, not breaking in the same spot. And Mavericks is notorious for being the best big wave that breaks in a single spot, like a 10-foot zone. And this time we were out there, was breaking in like a 100-yard zone, which is more like Pe'ahi Jaws, but very cold, shark infested, and even seals might nip at you.
Jeez. Did you see that video at the wedge a couple days ago where the seals cleared the entire lineup?
That's crazy. They're the OG body surfers. They probably want the spot back. They're
sick.
like, get out of here.
When I first saw the video, it like opened with everybody just clamoring to get to shore, and you're like, oh crap, there must be like a big white chasing after him. And then you see the little sea lion like cruising. It was actually
So was
hilarious.
a seal trying to attack people?
It was acting pretty aggressive. I think it was all to territorial or something.
That's pretty cool. I mean, seals, when you're in the water with seals, they are fast, they are quiet. And it's funny, they like pop their head up, they look at you, and they don't just like dive straight back down. They like go in reverse. They like reverse back in, and they leave no like ripple. They just kind of like go backwards. That's crazy. No, I mean, I know a lot of people, like one of our good friends, Jace Panabianca, who we've shot with a lot. He's a great water cinematographer as well, although he has a lot of kids and probably doesn't want to swim out at Jaws. He, funny enough, was actually out there that day with his son doing water safety for Kingston. Kingston got a couple shots too. But the point is he has actually been assaulted by seals swimming in like cold places. I think one time when we were in Baja, Mexico, I mean, he swam in a lot of crazy cold places, but he's totally been like attacked, not like biting wise, but like attacked, if you know what I mean. Like, a mating ritual was occurring, and he's another, I don't know what's all these water cinematographers. What, Jace might be 6'5"?
Yeah, something like that.
6'6" maybe?
Yeah.
All these water cinematographers have one thing in common. They're really tall and they have giant feet for swimming.
Yeah.
And so, I would be scared of seals too. Anything that can move faster than you in the water, you should probably be fearful of.
I know, it's not just the sharks.
You should be aware. Like even what we call, I would say, an alua here in Hawaiian, but also known in the rest of the world, a GT, giant trevally. Yeah, giant trevally, right?
Yeah.
Those things are wicked territorial. And oftentimes I would say if you ask divers, spear fishermen, they'd say those are scarier to be in the water with than a shark.
Really?
Yeah, because they're very territorial and they hit you with like a force to probably knock you out, or, I mean, bruise you really bad. And I'd imagine you could even hit in the right spot, blow out your knee or something. Like, those things are fierce. They go so fast in water, and they're big.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe they go 40 miles an hour underwater.
Yeah.
So like, I'm always keenly aware of my surroundings, even if it's not a shark. I'm like,
I know.
Does that seal look like it wants to harm me, or is it just checking me out?
The other day I was winging with Otis at Kuau, and I went way out the back, and there was a big bait ball, and I was checking it out. And then from the depths, I saw a yellowfin tuna, an ahi, come up and smoke a fish, and it came so close to the surface of the water, but it didn't like ripple the surface. But the thing was just a tank.
Did it seem scary to see in person though?
I mean, I was
Like just the power.
oh yeah, the thing was flying and it just went whoosh.
They're
and
really
just-
sharp too. All these fish
Yeah.
have really sharp like fins on
yeah.
them.
Gosh, yeah. Well, that's an interesting sidetrack. But what else about the Swell? We both surfed Honolulu. That I decided to leave early, which is it's always such a hard decision. I feel like it's so easy to get FOMO. I remember when if I ever skip Jaws swells to just focus on Honolulu, I have so much FOMO of missing Jaws, and then it's such a hard balance because it just turns out our two best waves in the winter are good on the exact same swell.
And opposite side of the island.
And opposite, and it's an hour and a half away from Jaws.
I feel like for me, okay, I always just look, I want to ride really big waves. Jaws is just on the right day, a giant version of Honolulu, like the, cave section.
yeah,
And so for me, I was stoked I was able to get it on the third day. And I think everyone was burnt out. So I was able to get quite a few waves. But you're always thinking in the back of your head, like, gosh, it must be really good over there. But then again, I know if I was at Honolulu, I'd be going like, I wonder how Jaws is. And Jaws to me is the pinnacle big wave. So where else is better than that? There's probably a few spots that I don't know about. But the thing is, on that day, I'm like, okay. I think for somebody that isn't motivated to just push themselves in big waves, why would you not go to Honolulu? It's literally on those days the best wave in the world, or one of them
for sure.
So easy decision for many. I would say for me, my easy decision is just go to Jaws.
Yeah, I feel like by the time I was leaving, I feel like it wasn't so good for towing. The swell was dying a little bit and it was starting to get the warble again. But for you were doing all the other sports, so it made a lot of sense.
Totally.
But that was my first time going from Jaws, came back here to our parents' house, dropped off the ski, and then Cody and I drove over, and it was
fun adventure.
It was fun. It was cool. I remember Ian Walsh was always saying that was like his program back in the day.
Yeah,
he'd surf Jaws in the morning,
and he was out there that whole day, right?
Yeah, he was out there that whole day. It was, I mean, honestly, it was probably the biggest cave I've ever surfed.
Wow.
It was north enough to let a ton of swell in, but it wasn't too north for it to wash through. So there was just these huge, and I got so smoked. More smoked than I did at Jaws all year.
I mean, at Honolulu, I've gotten, it's a mini Jaws.
Yeah.
Like when you fall at the cave, it's the same violence as Jaws, but maybe not as deep, maybe not as long of a hold down, but like, and maybe not as violent, but it's just like the cave is a scaled down Jaws.
Yeah, it has literally so much water coming into. So the interesting thing about the cave is that the section above, they call the point, it's like a quarter of the size of what the cave is. And there's some sort of weird reef channel out there that grabs extra swell and brings it in, basically makes a huge wedge. And that's how you see guys, they get the green light drop in, it's
all
like
mellow.
The mellowest drop, and then it just goes into
I don't know of very many other waves that has that easy of a takeoff into that big of a barrel. Like you're dropping into like a really mellow wave, and then you're in a backdoor pipeline barrel.
Yeah.
Like where else is that? And it grows for sure. Like you can literally catch a 6-foot wave and it grows into like a 10-foot wave on those big days.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was sick seeing. Like I got one fun one. It's everybody only seemed to get one good wave because the current was
bad, right?
Yeah. It was just a mess, for like 20 minutes and then a good one will come. But towards the end of the session, I'd already been out for 2 hours and I was so tired. So we surfed Jaws the night before, surfed Jaws all morning. And then the night in between, I somehow only got like 3 hours of sleep.
Oh,
it was brutal. Just one of those shockers. And then, so this session I've been out and I got caught in the side by like a 10-footer apexed on my head and full tombstoning, climb my leash. It wasn't that big of a deal. I was under for a while. I came up and then instantly swung on just it was like one of those wide ones you could roll in from wide, and then it just
Gorilla Bowl.
But like the Gorilla Bowl was way on the inside at Keiki Bowls, and it was just a death closeout, and it was the longest hold down I've had in a few years. Oof. It was absurdly long. It was and I was already so winded from just getting caught inside like 5 minutes before. Imai saw me pull in and he said he was like going to find me because I was under for so long. It was like, it was, yeah, it's funny how those wake up calls happen.
You can't, I mean, it's not the biggest wave that takes somebody out. It's usually like medium waves are oftentimes what takes people out for good. Like very rare the biggest wave ever does anything to somebody, which is, I mean, can't take that for granted. But
I know, yeah.
I mean, at Honolulu, I'm surprised more people don't get hurt or drown, you know?
Yeah, and it's just such a circumstantial thing too. You hear about the other, drowning, say at Mavericks, and a lot of times it's lack of sleep, and chasing the second or third day of a swell is usually what gets you. Not necessarily you fall. Like if you're fully rested and it's your first session, you fall on an 80-footer, you're probably gonna be fine. But you can fall on an 8 or 10-footer, and then after your body's depleted, that's when it goes wrong.
That's one of the reasons why I don't like strike missioning, say Mavericks or just about anywhere, with a red eye overnight, because you only get a couple hours of sleep and then you gotta go perform in these big waves, and instantly your breath hold and your energy output is halved, and it's not worth not having 100% of yourself, because I don't take a single big wave session for granted.
Yeah, gosh, it's crazy. It's funny how big waves has gotten to the point where it's so desensitizing, where I feel like a lot of people nowadays forget how gnarly it could actually be.
Well, unless you're posting the gnarliest wave ever, unless you're doing something very niche or no one often sees, no one seems to care. And I mean, that's like a lot of things. I think social media has had the effect of desensitizing everything, and definitely harder to stand out, but there's never been a better time to stand out in a way. Like there's a lot of opportunity to be seen, and you just got to do something great. But yeah, fortunately it's not the reason why we surf big waves. It definitely helps for sponsorship and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not the reason why I ride big waves.
I mean, take it from me, there's not much sponsorship left out there. For people that want to get into big waves now, do it because you love it. There's no career. I mean, there is a career, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Yeah, you got to really love it. But
I mean, I really admire the guys that work really hard and then they go out there and you can just see they're out there for the right reasons. You're one of those guys. Luca and Aloe from Mavericks, those two, I think work pretty hard in the off season. Aloe, I think, his training method he jokes about is breaking concrete and pouring new slabs of concrete.
Sick, yeah.
Those are just like, those are the real big wave riders. And Aloe, might win the biggest wave ever ridden.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And you like to see kind of like those hardcore guys get recognition they deserve, because they don't maybe have the same reach as someone like myself, but they're out there for the right reasons. And the moment I don't enjoy it anymore for the right reasons, I'll probably retire and maybe go check it out on the cliff from time to time, but probably be at Honolulu.
Yeah, no, I have a feeling that you and hopefully me will probably be out there for, I hope, another solid 20, 25 years, I think. That's realistic.
I only feel like my momentum's gaining, Yeah. Until you can't take the wipeout anymore or don't want to, that's probably when you hang it up, because I'm sure you never get over that adrenaline rush. It's just the consequences that accompany it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, who knows that the toe boards are going to be extra easy by then. They're already
this next season, they're already going to be extra easy.
Oh yeah. I tried your board, and that was, I thought my board was really good, but it's amazing when you try something that's so much better. It almost,
well, it's funny you mentioned that, because that was like, I made 6 of them this winter, shaped them, KT built them for me. We tried a bunch of different layups. Every single board had a different tune on them. And this one, I kind of feel like, okay, it felt very satisfying finishing the season with a board that I wasn't sure how I could make better. You can always make a board better in a way, but I was like, okay, I kind of reached the limit of how much you can change and not have a negative effect. Because I was continuously trying to make the board maybe looser for turns, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you make it too loose, you're going to spin out and you're not going to get drive. So it's like this really fine balance. And every board that I did shape, I was literally changing like, I don't know, max 1/4 of an inch of tail rocker. Bottom contours changed the most. Weight placement, flex. The outline remained quite the same. The tail got a smidge wider. If you were to show it to any normal person, they'd all look the same probably because it's so nuanced, but those little nuances make a giant difference in big waves. And I've felt this many times where if you don't have good equipment, it's really hard to perform in big waves.
Yeah.
When you have good equipment, it's almost becomes not easy, but you're not focusing on surviving. You're like, ooh, what can I do?
Yeah, 100%. And that board particular. So I have two boards that that I have in my quiver. One is perfect survival board. It's really comfortable. You know, you can go straight really easily. It just doesn't turn that good. And then my other one is sort of one that you worked with Keith on designing. It's almost like a scaled down step up. And it's really good for turns. It's a little sketchy. And I felt like that board that I got two crappy waves on it, but I felt like it was the perfect blend of the two, or it felt really nice and connected when I wanted it to. And then the thing just unleashed once you wanted to put it on rail. And that was sort of like the perfect Goldilocks mix of everything I wanted. So hopefully this off season you can make me one.
Yeah, I think that board is probably the perfect tow board right now as far as I like develop for what I want to use. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty satisfied with it for a while. But then I had an epiphany when I was out there, and you always get your best ideas when you're out in the big stuff. And this is what's nice about being able to shape, is because any idea that I get, I can immediately translate it and like make it. And I decided to make a tow board that would be the ultimate board for, I think eventually it could be the ultimate like carving board where it'll feel super stable, but I'm not going to disclose it yet. But I basically came across an idea to make the board absorb all the chop. It'll weigh a lot less. It'll be a lot faster.
Really?
And it'll essentially, it's the board in my eyes to ride the 100-foot wave. It's the 100-foot wave board. It's better than a foil would be. It's better than the modern tow board. I believe it'll feel so safe that 100-foot wave will not feel 100 feet.
Jeez.
That's my.
And is it pretty radically different?
I mean, it's disturbingly different. Like it doesn't look. There's not one thing that's similar. Not one thing.
Really?
I completely rebuilt it. I don't want to lead on too much because it'll be a big reveal.
Unveil it?
Well, I'm going to test it over the summer. I'll probably find some wave to try, a big wave in the Southern Hemisphere to try it, keep it on the down low. I'll definitely try it kiting because kiting is a perfect vehicle to really test it right in front of our house. But I would say earliest swells, if it's not here in Hawaii, it'll be Nazare, ultimate Nazare big wave board.
Really?
I think. I think when you ride it, Nazare will not feel sketchy, choppy. Never spin out. It sounds too good to be true, and maybe it is, but it's funny. It's a culmination of everything I've been working on into something, that. And I learned, honestly, big waves, you have to take different lines than surfing small waves. And this board's going to allow taking different lines to be easier. Whereas we've been really limited on taking different lines because the boards currently are always designed to do the small wave surfing line, which we always wanted to do, but those have the limits as well.
Yeah.
Like how fast can you get to the lip before it's breaking? And can you do a snap? And oftentimes you try to do a big carve, but the board, those rails can't handle the big chop, and you can hold it, but then you might skip a little and then you can hold it. It's not clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff. I think it'll be, I predict it's what everyone at Nazare will want to exclusively use. Not that they'll ever get one, because I'm making it and I'm sure they'll have no idea how to build it because it's such a big, the construction, it's a departure that it's unlike any surfboard made for big waves yet. And this is all theory. So I could be completely wrong, but proof in the pudding will come maybe next October when it gets really big and I could put it to the test.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to wrap it up. That's a good teaser. I mean, I'm curious. I want to wrap it up so you could show me what it is. But yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Here, wait, I have an idea.
What?
I'll show it to you.
Oh, yeah. You got my live reaction.
Let me see here. Where is it?
Yeah, I think I know what it's going to look like. I feel like I have a theory.
Okay, you think you do, but what do you think? This isn't with the graphic on. This is the deck.
Whoa.
Is that how you imagined it?
That's the deck?
That's the deck. Now scroll
Okay.
to the right.
I see the. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, I could see how that would be really stable.
But
Jeez, that thing looks freaking cool.
does it not look like anything ever made?
Yeah.
In a way?
Yeah.
Okay, and then here's the graphic. Sorry, you guys, torturing you. But I want to keep it under wraps to make sure it works first. And then surprise you guys. But
Oh my gosh, that looks freaking sick.
how's that
I
graphic?
want one.
Yeah, I was joking with Otis because Otis is like begging me to shape on board. I'm like, bro, I have kids. I kind of shape for myself. I don't shape for anyone else really. And he's like, please, please, please. And then I had this idea and I was like, oh yeah, you can have one. I don't even care about those things anymore.
Yeah.
The old toe,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
toe
yeah,
board.
yeah.
Like, I was like, because before I was kind of like, oh, this board's really good. Like, you know, might as well keep it. I worked on it. I made it, you know, keep it as my advantage. And then I had this idea and I was like, oh yeah, I don't even care about that other one. Give it to anybody. I don't really care. You know what I mean?
It's all, yeah.
And I told Otis that and he was like, wait, what are you working on next? And I was like, you'll see.
Yeah, it might be one of those boards that makes everything else irrelevant. So that'd be fun.
I think this is gonna, and we've talked about this a while, but like, and the length, it's a foot shorter.
Really?
That board is a foot shorter than
Dang.
what we're riding.
That's crazy.
But it should be. I believe there's going to be after a few prototypes there will be no going back. Is my belief.
Yeah,
I really
sick.
believe it.
Yeah.
I think you're going to get on. You're going to be like, why would I ride anything else?
Do you think it could translate to small wave boards too?
The problem is for this type of design, you need to be going really fast.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
You never know.
Yeah.
I thought about it. I think for like a wave pool, maybe
Yeah.
like a wave pool where it's like really constant, consistent.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah, I think we've tortured everybody enough with that teaser,
Okay.
but we'll see you guys next time,
See
next
ya.
week.